celebrities that the public loves so much that when they pass, it almost feels like, well, losing someone that we actually know. But in a shocking number of cases, a star's death isn't the end of their story. It's where the real drama begins.
Michael?
It's been more than 5 months since the sudden death of Michael Jackson, and family, friends, and business partners are still at odds over his will. The Jackson family first learned that Michael had a will about the same time it became public knowledge, and it was a shocking revelation to all. But what the will revealed was even more surprising. First, Michael granted guardianship of his 3 children to his mother, Catherine, and set up a trust with the 4 as beneficiaries. She was to receive 40% of his estate, the kids 40, and the remaining 20 would go to unspecified charities. But even that was uncertain because Michael named 2 other business associates as executors of the will. Lawyers for Mrs. Jackson say she wants to supervise her son's assets and has gone to court to be named sole administrator of the estate. Until these issues are each resolved, the estate is paying more than $86,000 a month to support Mrs. Jackson and her grandchildren.
So, joining us now in studio are the authors of Trial and Heirs, very clever title, Famous Fortune Fights. They're attorneys, and they happen to be married to each other. So please welcome Danielle and Andrew Mayoris. So, let's start with the Michael Jackson case. What were, well, I think you're probably going to say there were many, but what were some of the mistakes that Michael Jackson made when it came to his will?
He definitely made some mistakes, but he also gets points for doing a couple things right. He did a will, so he gets a point for that. He did a trust, so good job on that. And the third thing is he named guardians for his minor children. But the big mistake he made is he never transferred his assets into his trust during his lifetime.
Oh.
And because of that, there's this whole media circus going on where we see what's happening, and what could have remained private is now in the public eye.
So, is that the real life lesson for the rest of us? If you have children, a trust is a good idea, but don't forget to fill it up?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about Anna Nicole Smith. This is another, I mean, is this the biggest of all of the fights?
This is a big one. It's a $1.6 billion estate.
Unbelievable.
And it's been going on for 14 years.
14 years.
14 years. Started way back when Anna Nicole Smith was 26 and she was a stripper and she married the 89-year-old billionaire.
Yeah, we all know the story.
We all know the story. So 14 months after they're married, he passes away. And then there's a big question about who he wanted his money to go to because his estate said it went to his son.
What is the current status of that mess? It's so complicated to follow. After a while, you just get exhausted by it.
It started in probate court in Texas. It went to California for some fights there. Anna Nicole actually won an $88 million judgment against her stepson, who's 27 years older than she is. And the bottom line is, it's still sitting in the Court of Appeals, and it could still go on for years to come.
Well, let me ask you, is there anything that that the rest of us can actually learn from a situation like that, or is it just so far removed from what normal people would go through?
Not at all. You don't have to have millions, billions, even hundreds of thousands of dollars to benefit from estate planning. In Anna Nicole's case, he got married, but he never updated his documents. So that's something, people have young children, life changes, there's divorces, inheritances. People need to update their documents so they stay in control of who they want getting their money and how they want them to get it.
The second you have a child, shouldn't you just go right out and immediately deal
Absolutely.
with a will?
If you've got a child at all, or any type of money, even if you don't have kids, but you've got some money, you need at least a will and preferably a trust. But the second you're pregnant, I mean, forget about having the kid. If you're pregnant, if you're gonna have a kid, go see a lawyer and get it done right, because the consequences of not doing so are too great.
Let's talk about what a tragedy this was. Steve Mcnair, you remember that story? What a tragedy. Is that a case of, just so young that he didn't occur to him?
He was 36, so
Yeah.
I mean, that's young, but it's not a spring chicken necessarily. So in that case, he didn't have a will, he had no estate planning done, and he was shot by his mistress, leaving a wife, 4 children, 2 with his wife, and 2 by 2 other mothers.
And he was a football quarterback, so of course, I'm sure there was
He had a
fortune.
$20 million estate.
Wow. $20 million estate.
$20 million.
And then what happened? She didn't
the wife only want to give the money to half the kids or something?
Well, that's the big question. She filed to open up the estate, which is what a spouse normally would do if there's no will. But she named her 2 kids as heirs along with herself. She didn't list the other 2 kids from her prior marriage, which we call that one of the danger zones of estate planning.
Right.
When you know you've got a second marriage situation, that's all the more reason to do the planning the right way, because the chances for trouble are magnified 100-fold when you know you've got a spouse who may not get along with the kids, and once the loved one in the middle passes, they've got no reason to hold their emotions in check anymore.
They've got no lifeline. Exactly. The other kids have no lifeline.
And that's when the fighting starts.
So what are the top 2 tips that everybody can take away from the work that you do and the research that you've done?
Well, one of the top tips that we've already talked about is don't wait until you're a senior to do this planning. You don't have to be 70, 80, 90 years old to benefit from this.
At what age do you think it's appropriate for people to sit down and really think about establishing a will?
Well, we said as soon as they have kids, so definitely then, depending on what age you're at.
Say you don't have kids. You're 25, you're 30, what?
When you start to accumulate assets, so in your 20s, 30s.
If you're a homeowner,
definitely
have a will.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
End of the short list, one last tip?
One last tip is just because you have a will or a trust, that doesn't mean you're done. They call it the last will and testament, but it's really not. You've got to update your documents. Life changes. If you have kids, if you get married, divorce, start a new business, lose a business, you need to update your documents. Heath Ledger's a great example of this. He did a will, but it was before his daughter was born, and he never updated it. So then there's a big question about whether she was going to get left out in the cold and not inherit his money. Now, the family, after some volleys back and forth in the media, decided they were going to leave everything to Matilda, but it's a great lesson. He was 27 years old. You've got to update it.
I just got chills because you think about, you know, especially when you're in your 20s, you really do still have that feeling that you're going to live forever.
Absolutely.
Such a tragedy.
Yeah.
It's something none of us like to talk about, but you got to face it.
It's hard for people to sit down, talk to their spouse, talk to their parents, and this way they don't have to sit down and say, Mom, where's your trust? You can start down and say, did you hear what happened to Princess Diana, or did you hear what happened to Ray Charles? And start a conversation, start a dialogue, and then transition into there from...
Yeah, you can say, yeah, I read this book, by the way.
Exactly.
That's actually very clever.
Okay, get into a tough conversation. I know this is a bizarre segue, but it is snack of the day time. Come on over. And when you sit down to write your will and testament, you're going to need yourself a little snack. My sister actually gave me a box of these. You know, my dad lives in Saratoga Springs, New York. It's real close to where I come from in upstate New York. I absolutely love these. First of all, have you ever seen a prettier looking potato chip? This is a potato chip box. Gorgeous. Yeah. It's from the original Saratoga chips from Saratoga Specialties Company in Saratoga Springs. They are my neighbors. Thank you very much for your generous, beautiful gift. 0 trans fats, delicious potato chips. Grab yourselves a snack. We'll be right back.